My name is Claire Bennett, 28 years old, and every family dinner has always felt like a slow bleed until tonight, when the cut went deep. My mom's voice landed like a hammer across the table. Claire, you're not even half the woman your sister is. Look at her career, her marriage, her house. And then look at you. For 28 years, I'd bitten my tongue. For 28 years, I'd carried their disappointment like a second skin. But this time, something inside me broke. The scrape of my chair against the hardwood cut through the room. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. Well then, I said, my eyes locked on theirs. If I'm not half the woman you think I should be, maybe it's time you and Dad start paying the mortgage yourselves. Silence detonated across the table. Silverware froze mid-air. My father's mouth opened, closed, then stumbled on words. Claire, we didn't mean... He stammered, his face pale. But the damage was already done. The balance of power had shifted. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was their reckoning. But what they didn't know was that I had been keeping receipts for years. And tonight was only the beginning. Growing up in the Bennett household meant learning early which child mattered and which one didn't. Victoria, my older sister by 3 years, was born in October. I came in March, but if you looked at our family photo albums, you'd think only one of us existed. Victoria's birthdays filled 47 pages, elaborate cakes, friends crowding the frame, Mom and Dad beaming in every shot. Mine occupied 6 pages total, and 3 of those were group photos, where I happened to be standing near Victoria's celebration. I still remember the smell of Victoria's 12th birthday, chocolate fudge cake, rich and sweet, the whole family singing around the dining table. My 12th birthday, Mom baked peanut butter cookies, the one thing I'm allergic to, and said, "You're old enough to handle your own birthday, sweetie. I'm swamped." The pattern started small but grew with each passing year. My high school graduation, 18 years old, honors student, blue cap and gown that smelled like starch and achievement. I stood on that stage under blinding lights, diploma in hand, and scanned the auditorium for my family. The seats where they should have been sat empty. No faces, no cameras. Just the hollow echo of other families cheering. I found out later they were at the nail salon with Victoria, helping her prep for a date that night. The sound of everyone else's applause still rings in my ears, loud, enthusiastic, filling every corner of that auditorium except the space reserved for my family. I took the bus home alone that day, clutching a paper rose from the complimentary gift bag, breathing in its cheap floral scent and pretending it was enough. Every week at Sunday dinner, the script was the same. Victoria just got promoted to senior associate. Victoria and Mark bought that gorgeous house in Westchester. Victoria's planning a trip to Italy. Isn't that wonderful? And then, inevitably, the turn to me. So Claire, what's new with you? Still doing that social media thing? I'm a social media manager for a nonprofit. The pay is solid. The work is meaningful. But it's not glamorous like Victoria's corporate law career, so it doesn't count. For 2 years, I carried a secret weight, one my family never acknowledged. Mom called on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice small and trembling. "Claire, honey, Dad and I are in a bit of trouble. The mortgage, we might lose the house. Victoria's stretched too thin right now to help. Could you, just temporarily?" I said yes. $1,850 a month. No contract, no written agreement. Just a promise. Temporary. That was 24 months ago. A substantial amount, nearly 2 years' worth of payments, quietly transferred from my account to theirs every month like clockwork. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just an occasional text. Got it. You're a lifesaver. Followed weeks later by another comparison to Victoria at Sunday dinner. I became the invisible child who only appeared when they needed something, the backup plan, the safety net. Never the daughter they celebrated, only the one they used. And last week, after 2 years of silence and service, my mother looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't even half the woman my sister was. That's when I knew I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The first 12 hours after I walked out were the quietest of my life. No calls, no frantic texts, just silence. The kind that confirms everything you suspected but never wanted to believe. I sat in my studio apartment that night. The hum of the refrigerator, the only sound. The scent of leftover Chinese food, cold lo mein and soy sauce, lingered in the air. I didn't eat. I just sat at my small kitchen table, staring at my phone, waiting for something that never came. Not an apology, not even a "let's talk." 12 hours later, Victoria finally texted, "Mom said you were really rude tonight. What's wrong with you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Just accusation. Blame. The same script we'd been running for 28 years, except this time I wasn't playing along. I read her message 3 times, then deleted the notification. The next day, my parents started their damage control campaign. But not with me. With everyone else. Mrs. Chen, our neighbor for 15 years, called that afternoon. "Claire, honey, I heard you really upset your parents. Your mom was crying on the porch this morning. What happened?" Behind her voice, I could hear it. My mother's soft sobs, perfectly timed for maximum effect. By evening, the extended family group chat exploded. Aunt Marie, "Claire, how could you speak to your parents that way?" Uncle Tom, "That's so disrespectful. Don't you know everything they've sacrificed for you?" I didn't respond. Instead, I took screenshots of every message. On social media, Victoria posted a family dinner photo, one from months ago, carefully cropped so I wasn't in the frame. The caption, "Family is everything. Grateful for the people who never give up on each other." 247 likes, 38 comments, all of them praising Victoria for being such a devoted daughter. One comment stood out. "You're such a good daughter, Victoria. Your parents are so lucky." I read it and smiled, not with joy, but with the quiet certainty of someone who knows a secret no one else does. That night, lying in bed, I almost broke. My finger hovered over Mom in my contacts. The old programming kicked in. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should apologize. Maybe I'm the problem. Then my phone buzzed with a reminder. Scheduled payment of $1,050 due in 3 days. I stared at that number, and I remembered. In 24 months, they never once said thank you. Never once asked, "Are you okay? Can you afford this?" Never once acknowledged what I'd given up. The vacations I didn't take, the savings I didn't build, the life I put on hold, to keep their house from foreclosure. Instead, they told me I wasn't even half the woman my sister was. I canceled the scheduled transfer, and for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never felt before. Power. Not the loud, aggressive kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from finally realizing you've been holding all the cards and they've just been bluffing. They thought I'd fold. They thought I'd come crawling back, apologizing for daring to stand up for myself. But they didn't know I'd been documenting everything, every text, every slight, every pattern of favoritism and financial exploitation that stretched back decades. And the clock was ticking. I didn't rush. That's the thing about finally seeing the truth clearly. You stop acting on emotion and start moving with strategy. On day 5, Victoria showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when my coworker knocked on the glass door, gesturing toward the lobby. Through the window, I saw her. Victoria in her tailored white suit, hair pulled back in that perfect corporate bun, looking every bit the golden child. But even from 20 feet away, I could see the dark circles under her eyes. She stood there for 10 minutes, checking her phone, glancing toward my office, waiting. I finished my meeting, gathered my things, walked to the back exit, and left through the parking garage. The power wasn't in confrontation, it was in the ability to choose not to engage. On day 7, my mother's email arrived. Subject: Please, Claire Body. Sweetheart, we don't understand why you're doing this. Family is everything. Don't let money destroy us. We raised you, fed you, loved you. You can't just abandon us like this. I read it twice, noticed what wasn't there. We're sorry. We were wrong. We see how we hurt you. Just. You owe us. I saved the email in a folder I'd created. Bennett Family. Documentation. That same day, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I went to see a lawyer. Not to sue them. Not yet. But to understand my options. The consultation lasted an hour. The lawyer, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, reviewed my bank statements, the emails, the text exchanges. She looked up at me with the expression of someone who'd seen this story 100 times. "Do you have any written agreement that this was a gift?" she asked. "No." "Any documentation that they plan to repay you?" "No. Just the initial request that it would be temporary and just for a few months." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Then legally, this could be pursued as a loan, especially since there's clear documentation of the arrangement and the timeline." I didn't plan to sue them, but knowing I could, that was a different kind of power. Then Patricia asked a question that changed everything. "Did they refinance the house recently?" I blinked. I don't know." "Public records," she said, pulling up her laptop. "If they refinanced, it would show equity withdrawal." 3 minutes later, she turned the screen toward me. My parents had refinanced their home 16 months ago. Right in the middle of my temporary mortgage assistance, they'd withdrawn $60,000 in home equity. "Do you know what they used that money for?" Patricia asked. I thought about Victoria's kitchen renovation last year. The Instagram posts, the gleaming marble countertops, the price tag she'd mentioned in passing, around $35,000, but it's an investment. The timeline matched. They'd taken out equity, likely gave a substantial portion to Victoria, then continued to let me pay their mortgage every month, never mentioning they'd just pulled tens of thousands of dollars out of the house I was helping them keep. "I want to show you something else," Patricia said, pulling up a second document. "Financial advisors and mediators. Have you considered bringing in a neutral third party for a family financial conversation?" She slid a business card across the desk. "Sarah Mitchell, Family Financial Mediation." "Not a lawsuit," Patricia clarified, "but a structured conversation, evidence-based. You present the facts. They respond. A mediator keeps it from becoming a screaming match." I picked up the card, felt its weight in my hand. "They'll think it's just dinner," I said quietly. "A chance to reconcile." Patricia smiled. "And instead, it'll be a reckoning." On day 12, my phone finally rang with the call I knew was coming. "Dad," flashed across the screen. I let it ring. Once, twice, 10 times. Then I listened to the voicemail. His voice was hoarse, uncertain. "Claire, sweetheart, Mom and I think we should sit down and talk. As a family. We can work this out. We always do." There it was. The assumption that I'd come back. That I'd fold. That the invisible child would return to her role. 3 days later, Victoria texted, "Mom and Dad want to have dinner. Saturday, 6 p.m. at Riverside Bistro. Please come. We need to fix this." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, "I'll be there." What they didn't know was that I wouldn't be coming alone. Riverside Bistro was their choice. Upscale, public, with private dining rooms that had glass walls overlooking the main restaurant. They'd chosen it for a reason, neutral ground where I couldn't make a scene. They didn't realize I wasn't planning to make a scene. I was planning to make a statement. I arrived 10 minutes early and sat at the bar, nursing a glass of sparkling water. No wine. I needed my head clear. The restaurant smelled like fresh bread and olive oil, and a soft piano melody drifted from the corner. It was the kind of place where people celebrated anniversaries and closed business deals. Tonight, it would be where my family faced the truth. At 5:55, my parents arrived. Mom wore a pastel blue midi dress, her approachable mother outfit. Dad wore a suit, like he was attending a board meeting. They spotted me, waved nervously, and headed toward the private room. Victoria arrived at 6:02, with her husband Mark in tow. That surprised me. They'd brought him into this. Mark, with his easy smile and Midwestern charm, who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings, but never quite understood the dynamics beneath the surface. They all settled into their seats around the table, smiling with the kind of forced warmth that said, "Let's just get through this." "Claire," Dad started, his voice too cheerful. "We're so glad you came. We've all been, well, we've missed you." Mom nodded, dabbing at her eyes preemptively. "We just want things to go back to normal, sweetheart." Victoria leaned forward. "We're here because we love you, Claire." Mark sat quietly, looking uncomfortable, like he'd been dragged into a family therapy session he didn't sign up for. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said calmly, "I'm glad we're all here. But before we start, I need to tell you, I invited someone." Their faces shifted. Confusion, concern. "Invited who?" Mom asked. The door to the private dining room opened. Sarah Mitchell stepped inside. Mid-40s, gray suit, tablet in hand, and the kind of calm, professional presence that immediately changed the energy in the room. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't warm. She was neutral, and that made her terrifying. "Good evening," Sarah said, taking a seat at the head of the table. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a family financial mediator. Claire has retained my services to facilitate tonight's conversation." Mom's face went white. "Claire, what is this?" "This," I said evenly, "is a conversation about money, boundaries, and 28 years of patterns. And Sarah is here to make sure we stay focused on facts." Dad looked at Sarah, then at me. "We don't need a stranger in our family business." Sarah cut him off, her voice polite but firm. "Mr. Bennett, when family financial arrangements span multiple years without documentation, and when one party feels exploited, neutral facilitation is not only beneficial, it's necessary." Victoria glanced at Mark, then back at me. "Claire, this feels extreme." "Does it?" I asked. "Or does it feel uncomfortable because, for once, someone's asking questions you don't want to answer?" Sarah opened her tablet. "Let's begin." Sarah's voice was steady, clinical, the way a surgeon might describe an operation. "I've reviewed the financial documentation Claire provided. Over 24 months, she transferred funds to cover your mortgage, a substantial sum, equivalent to nearly 2 years of payments." She let that sink in. The initial request described this as temporary and just for a few months. There was no written agreement, no repayment plan, and no formal acknowledgement of the arrangement. Dad shifted in his seat. "We always planned to pay her back." "Do you have documentation of that intent?" Sarah asked. "An email? A text? Anything in writing?" Silence. "Because," Sarah continued, "the language in your messages suggests an expectation that this would end quickly. Yet it continued for 2 years." Mom's voice wavered. "We didn't make her do it. She chose to help us." Sarah turned to Victoria. "Ms. Bennett Thornton, Were you asked to assist with your parents' mortgage before Claire? Victoria hesitated. I don't see why that's relevant. It establishes a pattern of family financial responsibility, Sarah said calmly, and it clarifies whether Claire was genuinely the first choice or the fallback option. Victoria looked down. Mark looked at her, his expression shifting. Surprise, maybe disappointment. Sarah tapped her tablet. I also note that your parents refinanced their home 16 months ago. They withdrew a significant amount in equity. Yet shortly after, they continued requesting mortgage assistance from Claire. Dad's face flushed. That money was for house repairs? Sarah's gaze didn't waver. Ms. Bennett Thornton, you completed a major kitchen renovation last year. Is that correct? Victoria's voice was barely audible. Yes. And the cost? Around 35,000. Sarah nodded. The timing of your parents' equity withdrawal and your renovation align. Did your parents contribute to that renovation? The table went silent. Mark's voice broke through, quiet but sharp. Victoria, did your parents pay for the kitchen? It was a gift, Victoria stammered. While your sister was paying their mortgage? Mark's tone wasn't angry, it was disbelief. Mom started crying. Real tears this time, not the performative kind. We didn't mean to hurt anyone. But you did, I said, my voice calm, cutting through her sobs. For 2 years I paid your mortgage while you gave Victoria gifts. And not once did you say thank you. Instead, you compared me to her. You told me I wasn't good enough. You made me feel like I didn't matter unless I was useful. Dad's voice cracked. Claire, we're sorry. We didn't see it. We didn't realize. That's the problem, Dad, I said, meeting his eyes. You never saw me. You only saw what I could do for you. Victoria was crying now too. Claire, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know how much they were asking of you. Yes, you did, I said, my voice still steady. I texted you last May. I asked if you were helping them. You said, I'm too busy. You handle it. Then 2 weeks later, you posted vacation photos from Maldives. Mark stared at Victoria like he was seeing her for the first time. Sarah closed her tablet. I think it's time we discuss options for moving forward. I took a breath, looked around the table, and spoke. I'm putting 3 options on the table. Option A. Starting next month, you handle your own mortgage. I stop all financial support. Option B. The family collectively repays the amount I covered over the past 2 years. Option C. I walk away from the debt entirely. No repayment, no lawsuit, but only if you agree to clear specific conditions. Sarah's pen hovered over her tablet. Which option would you like to pursue, Claire? I choose option C, I said, but with 4 conditions. Dad leaned forward. What conditions? Condition 1, financial boundaries. From now on, I have 0 financial obligation to you. No emergency loans, no co-signing, no, just this once. If you need financial help, Victoria is your first call, not me. Victoria nodded slowly. I agree. Condition 2, family gatherings on my terms. I'll attend family events if I want to. No guilt trips, no manipulation. And at those events, no one compares me to Victoria. No one asks about my success in a way that implies I'm failing. Mom wiped her eyes. I promise. Condition 3, public acknowledgement. You will call Aunt Marie, Uncle Tom, and the rest of the extended family. You will tell them the truth. I supported you financially for 2 years, and you failed to acknowledge it. You will correct the narrative that I'm selfish or disrespectful. Dad nodded. I'll do it. This week. Condition 4, family therapy. We go to family therapy, 3 months, every week. Not to fix me, to help you understand how favoritism damages both daughters, not just one. Sarah made a note. I can recommend a therapist who specializes in sibling dynamics and family financial issues. Sarah finished typing. I'll draft this as a family commitment agreement. It's not legally binding in court, but it's a signed document that establishes clear expectations. She looked up. If any term is violated, the agreement returns to mediation, and Claire has the right to withdraw all support, including emotional availability. Everyone nodded. For the first time in 28 years, they weren't dismissing me. They were listening. When we left the restaurant, my parents stood to hug me. I stepped back gently. Not yet, I said. I need time. They nodded. This time, they respected it. Victoria approached. Claire, can I call you? When you're ready to listen, I said, not defend. I understand, she whispered. 2 weeks later, Dad called Aunt Marie. She called me afterward, her voice soft. Claire, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I'm proud of you. The family group chat went quiet. A few relatives sent private messages. You did the right thing. 3 weeks later, Victoria texted. I started therapy. My therapist asked about you. I realized I never really knew you. I only knew my sister who was always there. I want to know you. Really know you. If you're ready. I didn't reply right away, but I saved the message. 3 days later, I wrote back. Okay, coffee. But this time, you ask about me. You don't talk about you. Victoria replied. Deal. 1 month later, I hosted dinner at my apartment. Not my parents, not Victoria. I invited Maya, Sarah, who'd become a friend, and 2 close coworkers. I cooked pasta, not perfect, but made with love. The smell of garlic and basil filled the small space. Laughter echoed off the walls. No one compared me to anyone. No one asked, "Why aren't you married?" or "Why aren't you more successful?" They just asked, "How are you? What do you need? What makes you happy?" Maya raised her glass. To Claire, who taught us all that saying no to toxicity is the same as saying yes to yourself. We clinked glasses, crisp, clear, like a bell ringing in the quiet. I smiled. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my journal. Dear 18-year-old Claire, you are not broken. You are not half of anyone. You're just in a family that doesn't know how to love you the way you deserve. It'll take 10 more years, but you'll learn. Real love doesn't demand. It doesn't compare. It doesn't exploit. Real love respects boundaries. It listens. It sees you. You'll find that love, not from blood, but from people who choose you. Today, for the first time, you chose yourself. Love, 28-year-old Claire. I closed the journal. My phone buzzed. Dad. Family therapy confirmed. Saturday, 10 a.m. We'll all be there. I replied, I'll be there. I don't know if they'll change. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But I've changed. I'm no longer the girl waiting on the porch, hoping someone will see her. I'm the woman standing in her own light, unapologetic, unashamed, and finally, completely free. True power isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your worth. It's about looking at the people who made you feel small and saying, not anymore. It's about building a table where you're not just seen, you're celebrated. You are not half of anyone. You are whole. You always were.